Welcome to Two Across, the podcast that's like the Sunday puzzle for your ears, but with more swearing, where we dissect and analyze the New York Times daily crossword. I'm Alex.
And I'm Michael. On the pod today, we're talking about popular dog breeds, hot desking, and the Toledo Mud Hens. So grab your crosswords and a pencil.
Or if you're feeling frisky, a pen.
Because this is Two Across, and we're here to nuzzle your puzzle.
Welcome to another week.
I got a question for you, Alex.
Please.
You are an Android user.
Not a question.
I'm an iPhone user.
Still not a question.
Okay, here's the question. When I open a crossword that I've completed on the crossword app, it redoes the the little jingle and congratulations, you finished the crossword. Once I've finished it, every time I open that crossword, it starts by doing the congratulations graphic that happens when you complete the puzzle.
So dumb. Very
Does
dumb.
yours?
Yeah.
That's a recent addition.
Yeah, a couple weeks now. They had an update that did it.
And I'm torn because on the one hand, I love that little jingle.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we based our theme, what the great Clark Singleton used as the basis, as the inspiration for our theme. But and so I like hearing it. On the other hand, it makes it really hard when we're doing these. And I'm trying to scroll through crosswords to look at, okay, well, what happened last Monday? And it's like, blah, blah. And I'm like, I know, I finished the puzzle. I know.
I get it. Thank you. Jingle. Yeah, I agree. I don't know why they did it. I think it was a way to try to convince people to like share the puzzle. Like, share your score. You're this much faster than your average. Tell your friends. I think they're trying to make it more like Wordle in that way. But yeah, it sucks. It's only good when you finish the puzzle and you forgot that you've muted your phone, so you don't get to hear the jingle. Now you can like instantly bring the jingle back. Like,
That's
close the app, back in.
Yes. Yeah.
Nailed it.
I have
That's
a great question for you.
Please.
When we started talking crosswords way back before Two Across, we used to text each other about the crossword, and we would, the kind of like symbol or the acknowledgement of I'm done with the crossword now was one of us would text the other our time. This is how long it took me to do the puzzle today. And then we might start with like a little bit of like non-spoilery talk just in case the other one hadn't done it. And then once the other one was responded with their time, it's like, okay, now we've both finished it. Now we can talk about like, oh, did you like this? Did you like that? We don't really do that anymore. And I'm just curious, like how much do you care about how long it takes you to solve a puzzle? When you open one up, are you like, I want to set a new record for myself, I want to like try to beat my average? Like, do you think about those things, or are you just there for the love of the game?
Mostly for the love of the game. If it's like a Monday, I'm always like, how quickly can I do it? Can I do it in like 3 minutes? Like, can I beat that record? The rest of the time, I'm not really looking for a record. I'm just looking for like a good time. So the time really only reminds me how much of my life I spent on it, which is sad. The only time I look at my timing is like on a Thursday or a Saturday that just completely kicked my ass. And I'm like, man, that puzzle was a slog. I did not have a good time. And look, it took me 57 minutes. That's an entire hour of my day I'm not going to get back.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't really care about the timing anymore. But I do like looking at the stats. And I do like looking at, there's a website where you can see other people's stats, and it'll tell you how they did, but it'll also tell you how much behind or ahead of their average they were. And that's a great way to tell how hard a puzzle is. Not like the average time on it, but 60%
or 15% slower than their average.
Yeah. And that makes me feel a lot better. When I just completely get stumped by a puzzle, I can go look at those stats and be like, oh, this was a tough. makes me feel a little bit better.
Were you able to do as seen on TV our Monday puzzle in 3 minutes or less?
No, it took me 5 minutes and 13 seconds. And I don't, I mean, sometimes I'm doing the crossword while I'm like walking or watching a TV show, or so it's hard to know like what the context of that time was. But
Sure.
um, it was a great Monday, a great debut puzzle for Dank Wang Thang. What both the app and the website say for the name of this constructor who is from Vietnam. He's 17 years old. And I looked up how to pronounce the name based on diacritics in the name, and it's something like Dang Quang Dang. And like it's a tonal language. So the tone and the going up with your tone versus down is different. It's a different name if you pronounce it differently. So the fact that the website and the app don't have those diacritics to let you know that that's the name,
yeah,
is a huge miss.
Yeah,
It's like, is. It's literally a different person's name.
It is. It's. I think it's the equivalent of spelling someone's name wrong, which is what when you take a journalism class, as I regrettably did in undergrad, that's like the first thing. It's like it's like the Fight Club thing, like the first rule, the second rule. The first rule of journalism is spell the name right, regardless of what name you're talking about. And the second rule of journalism is go back and make sure that you spelled the name right. And it's like that's so important. Our names are very special to us as people, and I'm imagining if my name is one that is pretty standard, and it gets typoed in the same way every single time. Michael, Michael, gets misspelled Michael, Micheal. And that's not that big of a deal. It's not a big thing, but it's one of my like pet peeves, because it's like, that's my name, spell it right. And I'm imagining if I was published in the New York Times, if I got a crossword published in the New York Times that I made, and on the day that it got published, they wrote a puzzle by Micheal, like, it would absolutely, like, no qualms, no bones about it. It would like ruin that whole day for me, what would be otherwise an incredible accomplishment. And I think that is what this constructor, whose name I will not even try to pronounce because I know I will butcher it, but it, I feel for him, and I hate it for him.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately a thing that a lot of Vietnamese people are used to, because they do have these letters that are English letters. They just have different diacritics to mean different pronunciations of those English letters. So it's an A, but there's a dot underneath it and a little swoopy on top that tells you about both the vowel that you use and the tone that you use. And so you're kind of used to not seeing that. But man, you're used to not seeing that in like the 2000s. Like, these diacritics exist in Unicode, the like widely used font set, since 2003. It's been 20 years since we've had the technology to print these letters, and it's not in the New York Times app.
And again, you're used to seeing it, but you're used to seeing it from, you go to a small store and they get your order wrong. They do something like in day-to-day use, it is wrong, but you shouldn't be used to, and even that, you shouldn't be used to seeing that. We should do better, but like, the bar is on the floor here. This is the New York Times. We've got to be able to spell people's names correctly in the New York Times.
I recorded that whole diatribe on this in the Daily React, and then I went to my apps and I saw that there was an update for the app, and I got really excited. I was like, did they drop an update just for the ability to put this Vietnamese constructor's name? And no, it didn't fix it. But I got excited. This is a great puzzle. This is a puzzle about ass in on TV. ASs that are on TV. Adam Savage, Amy Schumer, Andy Samberg, Alice Sharpton, all in kind of different contexts. Amy and Andy are both comedians,
close, right?
I guess. But it's a fantastic clue and a great kind of trivia knowledge that's like very accessible. And I said in my Rapid React that I would do a puzzle like this every Monday. There was one from 2011 that Jeff Chen told me about that was DC Comics. So like Dana Carvey, like comics with the name D, the initials DC.
Dave Chappelle.
There's got to be so many of the versions of this that you could do, and I just want to do them all because it's a delight as far as I'm concerned.
This puzzle was a delight for me as well. With one little small blemish that I don't know, I've never heard Nabob before. Wealthy mogul Nabob. Nabob,
or at least Nabob is how Robin Williams pronounces it in Aladdin.
Is it in Aladdin?
I'm on the job, you big Nabob. You ain't never had a friend like me.
You're kidding me. Holy crap, I suddenly love this clue. What a 10 out of 10 puzzle. It really is great. I did this all downs, and that is a great way to stop caring about your Monday average time. Because if you do just like 3 or 4 Mondays in a row where you do it all downs, that time is gonna drop. And it was hard. There were a couple of places where I got stuck. I was so disappointed in myself that I was not able to come up with roster for membership role. But these things happen. So it took me a long time, but it was really fun to see the names kind of play out and get a couple letters and be like, okay, that's probably Andy Samberg. Like, oh, is this Al Sharpton? What are we doing? And it really does for these more accessible Monday themes. If you're an experienced solver, it's a fun way to get a reveal that is not quite as right in front of you. And I think it does a pretty good job of being accessible to newer solvers. So I love a Monday that does both, and really glad that we got a great Monday here. Shout outs to
30 across. Yeah, we're on the same page. What a fantastic clue. I think every Monday should have one of these. I think if we're going to be getting new solvers into the puzzle, give them some spice.
Yeah.
Give them a tough one that they're like, I have no idea what that is. And then you get some cross and it's like, boom, light bulb. It's a place for sweaters and not shirts.
Hilarious.
That's Asana, take off your shirt. I wonder if that was Stang himself or if that was a editor added. I know that occasionally they'll like throw in some jokes for some constructors, but yeah, what a great puzzle. Welcome to the family. And hopefully by the next puzzle that we see of yours, the app can handle it. It's 2 weeks of bad app stuff in a row. Last week we had do you remember? It was a while ago. We had
it's been a while.
The small letters thing.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't go up. It's like, and now we can't have diacritics.
I don't remember that one as much because I'm an iPhone user.
That's right. Let's move on. Tuesday. I thought I enjoyed Tuesday. I thought it was cool how the themers crossed in the middle. I think it's interesting construction to have news event across the middle. The theme here, by the way, is just like there's a number in the middle of a word, and that makes a new word, like a newt with 7 in the middle becomes news event. And it crosses with 28 down. 2 in the middle of irked becomes it worked. Nice. And then 18 down, 9 in the middle of boss. Yeah, becomes boniness. they cross in the middle, which is cool. And it makes this construction a lot more impressive and kind of like magical that it worked in that way. And it's still symmetrical. But man, the fill is not great in this. There's a ton of proper nounage, a ton of geography stuff, other language stuff, and then just a bunch of boring words to go along with it, like renegs 42 down and roiling and
I liked roiling.
well, you're
I don't think that's a boring word. Gemini's in here as well. I don't think that's a boring word. I don't think apricot is a boring word. I think that's fun. Erasers is kind of a boring word.
I'm not saying they're all boring. I'm just saying we had some boring. We also had some proper nounage that was bad. And so the fill for me as a whole was bad. And it seems like it had to be that way because of this interesting crossing thing in the middle. And if this had been a classic 5 horizontal clues with the exact same words,
right,
it would have allowed the fill to be a lot better. So for me, it wasn't worth it to have this unique construction in the middle.
Okay, so let's imagine, this is going to be oversimplified, but let's imagine that there's a spectrum. And that on one end of the spectrum, we have a fun solve.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other end of the spectrum, we have impressive construction.
Yes.
And ideally, we have crosswords, or actually, let's say it's like an x-axis and a y-axis.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can definitely have both of those.
Yeah. So ideally we want things up here, right?
Yeah, that have a good amount of both.
Do you just want it to be? Do we just need it to be above this 45-degree line?
What's your up and down axis? Fun.
If up is fun solve and across is impressive construction.
For me,
like, is it a 1-to-1? Or is it like, no, I need the solve to be fun, and then construction being impressive is a bonus, but I don't need that? Or is it, I want to have both of them in equal parts, and this just doesn't do that for you?
For me, fun is more important.
Okay.
I would rather have a by the book theme, like one that we've seen 1,000 times before, if the rest of the fill was a fun time. Obviously, I wouldn't want that on like a Thursday, and Fridays and Saturdays are themeless. But if my Tuesday was just like a substitution, we're putting this word in for that word, and it was just pretty basic, I'd be like, how was the fill? Did it allow the fill to be fun and have a bunch of little pockets of goodness? Then I'm all for it. I know you're kind of the other way. You're willing to look past some pretty bad or boring fill if the crossword is doing something crazy theme-wise.
I think that's fair to say. I think that, and for me, like, again, like, I don't mind boring fill. Like, I think that there's a difference for me. I don't know if it's fair to say that you lump these together, but I think for me specifically, it's definitely true that I differentiate between fill that is boring, types of batteries, AAA. Boring versus fill that is just like, what are we doing here? Dada artist Gene. Art. Like, I maybe there's a bunch of Dada like enthusiasts and she's like the queen of that space. Or maybe it's Jean and it's a guy, or whoever it is, whatever their gender. Like, that to me is bad fill, where it's like, you're not getting this. This could be a number of things. Versus, in this puzzle, 41 across, make a faux pas, air, 32 across, mailing label, abbreviation, attention. These are things that I'm not like, oh, cool, I get to write ATTN. That doesn't do anything for me. But it also doesn't make me mad at the puzzle in the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Would you agree that this puzzle would have been better served to just be a normal across like 5 horizontal femurs?
It
If it
certainly could be. It certainly could be. I think that there were some um, moments in this puzzle where I felt like I was uh, struggling without payoff. And I think a good example of that is this bottom left-hand corner where, there's not really anything in this bottom left-hand corner that's like fun. And so, getting zip file in there and IMF crossing with each other and that sort of stuff is just like not as great for me. German sunrise direction. Eventually I'm going to get OST by getting these crosses, but it certainly like just doesn't add anything to the puzzle for me. So those are, could that be avoided if we don't have to deal with news event and it worked and boniness altogether? Maybe.
I think it would have been worth a shot. Maybe this was the best version of it. Maybe Lee Taylor tried the other ways, and this was the one that worked the best.
If you're trying to get better at solving crosswords, that's something that people occasionally ask me about, because when I tell people that I went from not being able to solve a Wednesday puzzle to solving puzzles every single day in, a manner of just like a couple of years, one of the questions is like, okay, well, like what's the advice that you give? And it's hard to give advice that's just do a lot of crossword puzzles. That is ultimately like the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell somebody do the thing that you can't do. And so I just want to like throw in a little bit of advice here. If you get a clue about an artist and it's 7 letters, just put Picasso in there. And if you get a clue about an artist and it's 5 letters, just put Monet in there.
Or Manet.
And put either one.
Yeah.
Put Monet and be aware that sometimes they'll put Manet in there and just to mess with you. I don't think Manet has the Q rating that Monet has, so I think it's fair to put Monet first.
Q rating?
Yeah.
What's that?
And Q rating is like the how well the world knows you. How famous are you?
Oh.
So if you have a Q rating of 10, that means 10 people know you. I don't know what a Q rating is. I think that's a thing. Did I just make that up?
I've never heard of it.
I think Q rating is a real thing. That's like, this is how famous you are.
We've had 53 Monets and 41 Manets.
Wow. Okay. Well,
so it's close.
It is close. Anyway, just put those in. Start compiling a list of things where it's like, if you're like me, you don't know a ton of classical artists off the top of your head, just put Picasso in a 7-letter and put Monet in a 5-letter. You will be right more often than you are wrong. It will give you something to go at with, especially in these early to midweek puzzles. That's my little Tuesday advice for you.
Let's move on to midweek.
Okay.
Wednesday.
This was your puzzle of the week. Am I spoiling anything by saying that? Like, is there any world where this is not the puzzle of the week for you?
Friday was a phenomenal puzzle.
Uh-huh.
But this puzzle literally made me laugh out loud. And then I thought about it like the rest of the day and I kept giggling to myself. And I can't remember the last time that's happened with the puzzle. I'll get like at best like a little chuckle out of something.
Sure.
But man, this was good. It was such a great payoff. If these theme clues had been in any other order, it wouldn't have worked. But it's like you start going from the top like most people do. You get pellet maybe, and then maybe you get some crosses to get ghost. And if you are like me and you skip ahead because on the app it highlights it like this, You skip ahead to 68 and you're like, where to find the starts of these? Okay, so it's the first word of each of these answers. And it's a pellet and a ghost. And if you're a big video game nerd like me, you're like, it's Pac-Man. We're doing a Pac-Man puzzle, which is fantastic, which means one of these is going to be fruit, because that's also what's in there. Pellets, ghosts, and fruit. That's big name in underwear. Fruit of the Loom. Fantastic time. We're loving it. But then I was like, what's left? There's nothing else in Pac-Man. Pac-Man, pellets, ghosts, fruit, super pellets.
At that moment, did you skip to 58 across because you needed to know, or did you decide to go back and do the rest of the puzzle?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I just looked ahead or if I think I just kept going. I think I'm pretty good at like delaying my satisfaction in that way. And I finally got there. I don't remember which of the downs that I had, but rapper is a rapper, like started with W and had a K in there. And I was like, it's Waka. And that is where to find Waka. If you're looking for Waka, Pac-Man's the place to be. You can find Waka in the Muppet Show, like you mentioned. Fozzie says Waka. He averages 2 Wakas per episode, maybe 4. In one game of Pac-Man, you got thousands of Wakas, just nonstop Waka Waka. Waka Waka Waka. It's so funny. I cried laughing. I'm over the moon.
So I have played Pac-Man. I'm not as much of a video game nerd as you are, but I have played quite a bit of Pac-Man in my day at various bars and arcades. I've never heard it called a Waka.
It's not called a Waka.
I've never heard the sound be characterized as Waka. Like
what do you say?
I don't imitate Pac-Man.
Well, that's on you.
That is admittedly character flaw of mine. But I mean, if I was gonna try to imitate Pac-Man, it's hard now because now Waka's in my brain.
Waka's what it is.
But I think that I would still think that it is more of a sound effect than an onomatopoeia. So I would still, I think, characterize it as
sound effects
sound
that
you can't
quite
spell, like a, and that does, like, you do get a like you do get that when you play Pac-Man. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that I have a reasonable exposure to Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard it characterized as Waka.
When you read it, were you like, that's not what it is?
No, I knew exactly what it was.
Well, there you go. Because that is what it is.
Yeah.
Nobody's calling it anything but Waka.
Yeah.
So it was tougher for you to get.
It was.
Okay.
Well, not really, because I walk Flock of Flame. Come on.
Yeah, that was one of my worries about the puzzle, is that the top left corner and the bottom right corner are really contained, and the only way in is pellet dispenser and Waka Flocka Flame. So a lot of people, even if they knew it was Waka somehow, if they don't know Waka Flocka Flame, that's a tough in, and it can make this Wednesday a lot harder. So yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about Friday in a second, but I don't know if it's my puzzle of the week, but it is definitely, I cannot remember laughing that loud at a puzzle, just picturing how long they thought about this.
It's a great puzzle. It really is. It's a great puzzle, and I think that the fill of it is enough to support what is like a really, really great theme. There's some nits you can pick, but it was a very joyful puzzle, so I don't feel like picking those nits right now. Should we split some peas?
Let's split some peas rather than hairs and move on to Thursday, which 35 down is the theme revealer, split peas. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other theme clues, which is impressive to get 5 in there. And it's just long words that become 2 shorter words when you split them in between the double P. And very impressive. An impressive construction.
Very impressive. And all of the theme clues, with the exception of maybe power supply, which requires you to split into 2 words, powers up and apply. The rest of them, it's just 1 word on each side with the P's. The exception of that one, all of them really, really great themes, and anyone who says otherwise is simply wrong.
Let's talk about whippets, because a whippet is a type of dog. Yes?
Yes. A whippet is a breed.
A breed of dog, which maybe that's common knowledge and I'm just not a dog person.
And if that's true, and look. If it's just like, hey, some people aren't dog people, and it's like people who aren't dog people don't know whippets, then like, if you're not a dog person, shame on you.
I looked it up and it's the 54th most common dog breed behind Samoyeds. Have you heard of those?
Samoyeds are great dogs.
Samoyeds and Papillon.
Papillon are great dogs.
Great. I'm sure all dogs are good dogs. Are we expected to know 54 breeds of dogs?
What if I just named?
You have like a song, Eagle and
Golden Retrievers and
50 nifty breeds of a dog. And
whippets are great dogs. It's like a mini greyhound.
Cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah, really great. It was sad for me to see that. Red is like the first.
You want to know what my favorite thing about a whippet is?
That it's also a drug.
What does the name whippet make you think?
Drug.
If somebody was like, hey, that thing is called a whippet, what kind of characteristics would you expect from that thing?
I would expect it to take care of problems. I would expect it to save the cream before the cream goes bad.
There's only one thing in that jingle. That's all you've got.
No, before the cream sets out too long, you must whip it into shape it up, get it straight, go forward, move ahead, try to detect it. It's not too late. Why can't we have more Devo lyrics and less dog breeds?
You would expect it to be fast. Right? It's called a whippet.
I mean, it has nitrous in it, so it's going to be fast.
It better be fast. For those of you listeners who are not being obstinate assholes right now, you will be happy to find out that the whippet, a dog breed with a name that would suggest quite a bit of speed, has the fastest 0 to 60 of any dog breed. That's a perfect name for a whippet.
When something's going wrong, you must whip it.
This puzzle is not symmetrical.
This puzzle is not symmetrical.
Does it bug you that it looks symmetrical, but it's not?
It does. It does bug me. I think that was the only way to get 5 clues in here, 5 themers. But
there's 6 themers.
Right. 5 plus the revealer.
Right.
Which again makes it more impressive of a construction. And it's not like every puzzle they've ever printed has been symmetrical.
It's a less impressive construction. Go ahead.
They print non-symmetrical puzzles every now and then.
They do.
That just makes you like it less.
Okay, so I think that this comes back to our conversation of crossword as art form. And I think that when, like, why does poetry have a rhyme scheme? Why do lyrics have meter? Why did Shakespeare write in poetry instead of prose? Why do songs have to be 3 minutes or less? Why, we have all of these songs don't have to be 3 minutes or less.
No.
We have all these parameters that we put on various art forms. And it's interesting because there's all these rules, and people think of artists and artsy people as people who think outside the box and don't follow rules and just do their own thing and are very whimsical and just do whatever the hell they feel like. And that's not true. Artists craft art within parameters, and it is those very parameters that give art, in a lot of ways, its beauty. We are impressed by Shakespeare's sonnets, not because he managed to write these beautiful things and tell people that he loved them, but he managed to do it and make it beautiful and convey the meaning within these difficult parameters. It is the parameters themselves, the boundaries, the obstacles that we place that make room for even greater achievement. So take that to the crossword space. If you can just be like, hey, I made this amazing crossword and it's not symmetrical, that's less impressive. It's like 80% less impressive, because if you can put the blocks wherever you want, then you can do all kinds of things with crosswords. One of the things about crosswords is that they're symmetrical. And so it creates difficulty, because it's like, oh, I can make this corner really, really cool, but then this other corner sucks. We talk about it all the time. And the really great ones are able to make this corner really, really cool and also make this corner really, really cool. And for you to be able to be like, hey, I can make this corner really cool, and this corner over here sucks, so I'll just change this one and leave this one as is cheap.
I don't agree with you that the constraints are what make art better. I'm as constrainty as they come when it comes to my art. I always write in meter. I, put a bunch of boxes around myself so that I can create something that's cool in the box that I put it in. There's a lot of people who don't. A lot of poets who don't write with meter, completely free verse. Shakespeare did a lot of that as well. It's still art. And a lot of people would say it's just as good. I do agree that the symmetricalness gives the crossword, at least the New York Times crossword, a lot of its value. And I honestly would rather see a completely non-symmetrical puzzle than this, which is close. Like, imagine if there were no rules. What would that look like? Every once in a while, we just got like black squares in just random ass places. I think that would be cooler than this, which is like, yeah, it's close, but not. It just looks it's kind of like the uncanny valley. It's like you're expecting it to be one thing and it's not.
This is very uncanny valley. This is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree. Whippets aside, not my favorite puzzle of the week.
Let's talk about Friday,
which might be my favorite puzzle of the week. There are so many long, fantastic clues in this puzzle. Very clever. Am I too late? Mercy rule. Not one word. Overgrazed. Prom dresses. Brute force. Scholarship. Gets bored and makes love. Just bring it on home. Noise music is a thing. We've seen it a couple times in the puzzle. Not as well known. And then, I come in peace. I didn't even say. Player haters. Oh my
which
God.
crosses ballers.
Player haters and ballers right crossing each other is fantastic. Well, the other one hot desk, I guess, is a thing people say. I have a hot desk at like work share space, but hot desked. I'm hot desking this week. I just feel like I would dislike a person who said that. But like those two aside, just the amount of long, super incredible stuff in here is fantastic. Very minimal bad fill. I don't like Errol here, crossing with Omani, 3 down and 1 across. Errol is a seed case. I don't know if you knew that.
Did not know that.
And then 31 down, Lank crossing with Rhine. Rhine, we've seen in puzzles before. Lank, just like I knew Nabob from Aladdin lyric, I know Lank from Jingle Bells lyric. You know that lyric?
His horse was lean and lank.
Second verse. So I think that's what kind of makes it have a pass. But it is still just like,
and
you got to dig down deep in the...
For the same reasons, I'm still waiting on the New York Times to include Upsot into the New York Times puzzle.
Has that not been in there?
I don't know. Has it been in there? Upsot cannot have been in the New York Times crossword.
Never.
My new mission.
And then we got Upsot.
I'm going to put Upsot into a New York Times crossword. I'm going to get it published, and they're going to spell my name wrong. I'm just trying to manifest these things.
Yeah, make it happen. So I loved it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great puzzle. I really loved it too. It is a very impressive, like, this feels more like a Friday. I think for some reason, the construction of it, it's not a ton of open space, which I associate more with Saturdays. And so somehow, like, they've done just an amazing job of creating a puzzle that has a lot of long clues without it feeling like there's a ton of open and empty space, which to me feels incredibly like a Friday. And I think that there are, there's a couple of tough, like I didn't love Poser, the clue for Poser. You talked about that in the rapid react. But there's also some really good cluing, like 35 across bacon bit for essay is really, really fun.
Really tough.
It was, tough, but also like a kind of thing when you get it. Purple stuff becoming prose, 44 across is also a good example of that. Just like fun ways of cluing things that we've got to have anyway. And also 47 across might be my favorite. Stole from a drag show.
Ooh.
Not a verb. Stole the noun. Boa, which is just one of my favorite things that they do late in the week is when a constructor or the editing staff of the New York Times finds a really fun way to clue a 3-letter word that might otherwise be boring, and especially those that we've seen a lot. And this is a perfect example of that. So big fan of that.
Yeah, I do think that the reason, obviously they put in Poser, the clue as it is, tough not to crack, to make the puzzle harder. But also I think it was kind of because they had Poser and Ballers and Player Haters like all there. And if they included as like a Poser and a Baller and a Player Hater, it is very like one generational. And they want this to like apply to multiple people. So my least favorite clue in the puzzle is 6 across. Company whose name aptly is an anagram of games minus a letter. An anagram of a word minus a letter is nothing. It's nothing. That is not cool or apt. Or
that's funny. It's pretty apt, which, if you think about it, is an anagram of tarp minus a letter. So did you ever think about that?
Apt is an anagram of dumb minus 4 letters plus 3 others. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Be honest, that is still
nothing.
That is still not worse than 12 down.
It's worse than 12 down.
It's unconscionable that the New York Times continues to not know whether to put an exclamation point at the end of a clue.
How is this different than last week? Was it last week when you said
question mark versus no question mark, keep people on their toes?
It wasn't question mark. It was like For some people.
Oh, I see.
Was it Saturday?
The way it's different is that this is a punctuation mechanic that they are trying to add to the New York Times puzzle. And if you're going to add a mechanic, you need to be consistent about it.
So if it's a mechanic you've always had, switching it up is fine.
I don't like this as a way of cluing things, so I'm a bad person to ask about this. But I think generally, if you are trying to add a new methodology, you can't be inconsistent about it, because you have to let people adjust to, oh, when I see that, I do this, et cetera, until they get used to thinking of things that way.
And then you can switch it up on them.
And then maybe you can switch it up on them. I don't think this is one that you should ever switch up on people. I mean, I think it's pretty common that, like, we talk about it sometimes, like, hey, should this have a question mark? Should this clue have a question mark on it? And it's usually not like well, sometimes this clue has a question mark. I don't know. Question marks are a little bit more, there's multiple ways to get to the meaning of a question mark in a crossword clue. I think that this is less about, like, exclamation point or no exclamation point. Have you looked up what last week's was that we talked about?
The word was to, and it was like in between, word that coming in between one and many. It's between one and many.
Mm-hmm.
Was the clue. And then elsewhere in the same puzzle, they switched it up. We didn't talk about it last week, but
we talked about it on the rapid reacts. Or did we? Or did we just talk about this off on?
It was Saturday. It was Saturday, May 20th. We didn't talk about it. We were talking about Lolcat and Janos and Cyrus and Enos and stuff.
To me, it's more like if you had
sorry, but that example was, one of them was it's between one and many.
Yeah.
So two sometimes comes between the words one and many, one, two, many.
Right.
And then elsewhere in the puzzle, they had 33 down, which is what might precede a million.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Right. But in one of them, they say might, which is literally what it is. And the other one, they say it does come between one and many.
Right.
And you were like, oh, well,
that's not a mechanic. That is not punctuation. That is not a mechanic. That is just a way of wording things. And you're wording two different clues differently. And if you want to say that's inconsistent because the word two doesn't always have to go between one and many, I think that's a valid point to make. And that's a valid argument to have.
Yeah.
But I think that's an entirely separate argument than when we're talking about punctuation. Putting an exclamation point or not putting an exclamation point, to me, is less like that. And it's more like if you clued 51 across, keep this between us, the answer becomes not one word. It's more like if you clued that without quotes around it. And we were just, I guess sometimes we don't have quotes, but we're still supposed to imagine saying something that is the same. Or not putting brackets around a clue that typically has brackets.
Or not putting question marks around a thing that's a joke. Or sorry, not putting question mark.
I think question marks are a gray area. I don't think question marks, because question marks you can argue one way or the other. But like quotes always go around quotes. Because it's asking you not to respond to the clue. It's asking you to say the same thing as the clue. So it's forcing your brain to think differently. A question mark, you're still answering the clue. You're just answering it in a cheeky way. And there's this degree, how cheeky are we being? And sometimes they're going to put a question mark and you're going to be like, did that need that? And sometimes they're not going to put a question mark and you're going to be like, that was too cheeky. But that's more subjective. This is objective. I don't think it's objective. This is
question marks. I agree. This is objective. Question marks are not subjective, because if there's no question mark, it needs to literally be what the clue is saying. If it's not literally what those words are saying, you need to have a question mark. That's objective. That's my problem with it's between one and many. If that had a question mark on it, then you're like, ooh, I see. It's kind of cheeky. But without the question mark, it is not literally between one and many. It might be. A question mark would have saved that 6 down for 2.
And
So
I think that's...
I think it's still mechanic-y.
Are we making the same argument here?
Yeah.
So then you agree that the udder is a bad clue?
Yes. And you agree that they shouldn't have done one clue with a question mark and one without.
Not quite.
Well, there you go.
No, I get what you're saying. That makes more sense. I think this makes me understand more what your argument is about that clue. And I think I agree with you. I'll have to think about it more. But I think I do agree with you. Maybe I just need to reframe what I think about question marks, because if I have always thought of question marks as being like on this scale of how cheeky are we being.
Some are cheekier.
But I guess what you're saying, some are cheekier than others, but I guess what you're saying is that it's not a question of how cheeky you're being. It's a question of, does what you're writing literally answer the clue?
Yeah.
If no, doesn't matter how cheeky you're being, you got to have a question mark. If yes, then you can be cheeky and not put a question mark in there.
Yeah. Like a student's spot for honor roll. It's cheeky, but it also literally means a student's spot.
Right.
It's between one and many does not literally mean 2. Which, that was my problem.
2 is literally between one and many.
It's not.
In the phrase one too many.
In that phrase. In that one phrase it is. And again, if it was that by itself, I probably wouldn't have thought too much about it, which is like, milk it to me by itself. If there were 2 in the puzzle and one said milk it with a question mark or with an exclamation point and one didn't, I would throw up my arms. But as long as we can say that, oh, they can do things differently. I don't know. I agree with you.
Do mechanics differently. You can't do mechanics differently. You can't, if they printed 51 across, keep this between us, and they didn't have quotes around it, it would be the worst clue of the week. It would be so bad. It would be unconscionably bad. And I think that udder, for that reason, either get rid of this mechanic, because maybe I'm just like an old man yelling at clouds here, but it's a bad mechanic. It's a dumb way to clue things. But either get rid of it because it's bad, or do it consistently.
I'll go one further.
And it'll just be another one of those like, hey, name hidden in symposium or whatever.
I'll go on further that they should only print this with an exclamation point. Because, like I said, without any kind of punctuation or anything, it needs to literally be what that clue means. And milk it doesn't mean utter.
I agree with you.
So I think they should always
put it with the exclamation point or get rid of this type of clue entirely.
Yeah. Great. We're yelling. Those clouds, they don't know what's coming.
We're fired up.
Saturday was
on
hell.
Saturday
for me.
Have you ever done a puzzle and you assume things about the constructor while you're doing the puzzle? I was doing this puzzle, and the whole time I was like, look, I'll figure this out and I'm going to get there, but I am tired of doing puzzles by people who are like 80 years old. I'm just tired of solving puzzles from people who are so old and just of a different generation.
Yep.
And Samuel Smalley is 17 years old.
But from Canada. So he's an old soul. He's an old soul.
Oh, man. This was a hard puzzle. It was good hard, but it was hard.
It was good. It was, I don't know if it was good hard. I like that there wasn't a ton of proper nounage. I think that having a tough puzzle without a lot of proper nounage is commendable. And I'd much rather have a puzzle that wasn't reliant on all of that. But what makes this hard instead is not cleverness. And that's my favorite kind of difficulty, is like clever cluing. What makes this hard for me is just the archaicness of some of the language. Gins up is like the first one. I think I've heard someone say that before. Race bib, again, something that I kind of wrote down and was like, that makes sense. That they kind of wear bibs, right? I feel like that makes sense to me.
That's a thing. That's not archaic. That's just a thing.
Yeah, everyone knows about marathon running. Literally everyone. And then in the middle, we have this kind of like, I call it the four horsemen. They're symmetrical. Tawny is probably the best of them, Tawny Lion, and then Dribs, and then Stagey, and then Lades. And they're all there in that little square. And that, I think, is the number one thing that made this puzzle just, for me, was that I couldn't get any of the long ones, and I couldn't get those crosses, which are just in very key positions. So it kind of felt like doing 5 different puzzles, because each corner was separated by either black squares or one of those 4 words, which were just like huge barriers to the flow of the puzzle. So it kind of made me miss the proper nounage. Like, at least if it was proper nouns, I had a chance of getting some of them. But there was no way I was going to get Stagey or Lades or Dribs. There's zero chance.
I didn't like Stagey because there's this assumption, there's this stereotype of the stage actor being the ham and like over acting everything and being too emotive, and it comes up weirdly in the New York Times a lot, which is so odd to me, because New York is the home of Broadway, which is arguably the stage theater capital of the world. And you would think that that New York would have a little bit more pride in that art form, which, by the way, all of your favorite movie actors, all of the best ones, are trained theatrical actors. All of them are learning Shakespeare when they're young. All of them, like, they are all going to school to learn how to act for the stage. And it's that training that makes them so damn good. And all of the actors that you see on TV shows and movies that you're like, that was kind of stagey, that was kind of hammy, that wasn't very great, those are the Hollywood people who are just pretty faces who go to Hollywood and have no training and just get put in TV shows and movies. So that is frustrating to me. And I think that it's time for the New York Times to have a little bit of pride in theater writ large. So that's my problem with that clue.
Are you
stagey?
Are you mad that stagey, because stagey means like excessively theatrical, like further than basic theater? It goes too far. So are you just saying that stagey is kind of a pejorative and they shouldn't put it in there?
I think that's a bad pejorative. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that Samuel would have chosen this word. I think he had to put it in there because it's a tough construction. I don't, no one's choosing to put Tawny and Lades and Dribs and Stagey in there. But I agree. I'd rather not see it for multiple reasons. It's archaic and it's kind of negative on the theater, which you and I both love.
My bigger problem with this puzzle is how much repetition is littered throughout this thing in the answers. And it's all over. And
we've got yes, 36 down. We've got ha, 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 34. Big no-nos, 11 down.
You've got 14 across, 1-1.
Right, 1-1.
It's literally in every single corner.
30 down, Toto.
You have at least something. Toto is a bit of a joke. That's just Toto. But in every corner, there's something that is just repetition. And that's kind of boring for a Saturday. I don't know if I want to put that down. I mean, if you're going to have one in there, that's fine. But 4 times is quite a lot.
I don't dislike it on its face. I think 1-1 is okay because it is. Oh, just kidding. I hate 1-1. I thought it was going to be clued as like a tie, which I kind of like.
It's clued as New Year's Day informally 1-1, which I would argue that New Year's Day formally would be 1-1.
January 1st would probably be formally, or
I guess.
yeah. But I had Jan 1.
I had Jan 1 for a while. That's informal.
Yeah. And I don't like ha 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 because, like, why is it 3 ha's and not 2? I don't like yes, yes because.
Why is it 2 yeses and not 3? If I'm impatient, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Come on, get out of here.
And it does that. Is it approval if you're being impatient about it?
Right.
I don't think so.
I didn't like that. I want to switch because Samuel Smalley also has some big absolute home runs in this puzzle.
Yes.
Coats of Dorbs makes its New York Times crossword debut. Lab Waste is really great. Poor You is clued incredibly well and is also a brand new entry to the New York Times. I said in the Rapid React, but there's like some crazy number of brand new entries to the New York Times. I think it was like 13, and most of them are pretty good. And that is commendable, and I'm a big fan. I want to tell you a story about this upper right-hand corner, which gave me tons of troubles, and it's all 12 Down's fault. Very clear, comma, say, comma, colloquially. In high def is true and fine. And when I got it, I had to agree that it was true and fine. But do you know what I put in before I had in high def that I think is better?
No.
Very clear, say, colloquially. Crystal.
I also had crystal.
And then I was like, oh, that's not right. It can't be crystal. I can't remember why I thought it couldn't be crystal. But there was something that I put in that also ended up being wrong, that I was like, oh, it can't be crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what it is? Azabelle.
Ooh. Well, that doesn't work because you would say clear Azabelle. You wouldn't call something Azabelle.
Hey, are we clear? Azabelle. Are we clear? Crystal. Both of them are crystal clear, clear as bell, colloquial. And then it was in high def. That probably doubled the amount of time that it took me to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, it was the tough puzzle. The new clues, I think there's a lot of really good ones. I don't like lab waste or bean plant or peak times.
Peak times isn't great. I think there's a couple of things that could go better than peak times, like Saturdays or peak hours.
Peak hours, lab waste could be bio waste. Lab waste is like, technically that's a thing. And it's the same with bean plant. Like, it's technically a plant with a bean on it, so it's a bean plant.
Right.
A lot of technicals. And then, man, I hated the clue for Need Me. And I wonder, Samuel actually gives us, like, lets the curtain down a little bit and says, I'm happy to see 42% of my original clues remain unchanged, which sounds absurdly low to me. So that means what? 58% of the clues were changed in some way?
And that's a low number?
So, yeah, I mean, it is a debut. And I think when it's a debut, the editors are like, we got to make sure, we got to put our hands all over this. But, like, did they do Need Me or did Samuel? Because is it okay if I leave sounds very formal to me, and Need Me is the opposite. So, yeah, that clue was rough.
That slowed me down a lot.
So, yeah, this is high highs and low lows for this Saturday debut. I am very excited to see more from Samuel Smalley. We had 2 17-year-old debuts this week, which is insane.
A huge fan.
The youth will save us.
Huge fan. They're going to save the world. Let's talk about Sunday. There are 9 themers in this Sunday puzzle. One that stretches the board, and then 4 others that also stretch the board.
Yeah, it's 9, but then 8 of them are connected and have to stretch the board as a pair.
And have to be symmetrical. And are evenly spaced out, which doesn't really matter, but makes it look so pretty. Mm-hmm. And it's just an absolute marvel of a puzzle construction um, from Shandy Detmer and Taylor Johnson, who's a friend of the pod. And I just had such a great time with this puzzle. The theme in the middle, request for one-on-one time in the Bachelor TV franchise. Do you watch The Bachelor?
No.
Okay. I'm an on and off Bachelor watcher. The most recent one that I watched was The Bachelorettes, when we had two ladies at the same time. And then the season after that, they decided to put Zach, whatever his name was, as the Bachelor, and he was already on the Bachelorette's season, so we knew him, and he didn't win. And one of the reasons that he didn't win, one of the reasons that neither of the girls picked him, is that he had the personality of a gun rapper, and I just wasn't excited to see him try to carry an entire show, so I did not watch that episode or that season of The Bachelor. All that to say, really fun to see Can I Steal You for a Second, which gets said all the time in the Bachelor franchise. It's up there with we're going on a journey together, and I'm just here for this entire experience, and I'm here to find the real thing, and all of those like overused phrases. And
I personally think that The Bachelor is a perfect microcosm of everything that is wrong with American culture.
Go.
No, we don't have time.
I was just wondering to myself, why don't we have more hot takes in this podcast?
I'm glad to know.
And we take this puzzle, Can I Steal You for a Second? They literally steal the you from the first clue, first answer, and they use it for the second answer of the two. And the word is the same. They change suit to sit, and then sit to suit. They change cause to case, and then case to cause. They change donuts to don'ts, and then don't to donut. They change house to hose, and then hose to house. It's like, do you have like an algorithm thing that you're going to tell me that like ruins my enjoyment of this? Or is this like one of my favorite? I think this is my puzzle of the week. I can't believe how good this theme is.
I think that having it be the same word makes it easier, because you don't have to come up with two words that work with you, or four words. You don't have to come up with sit and suit and blah and blah. So you don't have to have like 8 different pairs of words.
Sure.
I think
But you're borrowing the you for the second one.
It's absolutely great. It's a great theme. The theme for me was ruined by referencing The Bachelor. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. It's a very common phrase.
All right,
it's a very common phrase.
Just do like 2 minutes on The Bachelor then.
The Bachelor, I honestly can't. It's something about the fact that you can watch The Bachelor and be like, oh my God, these are the worst people in the world. What a dumb representation of what love is. They don't get romance. I'm a better person than they are. And at the same time, you are completely wrapped up in their story and their chance to find love. And that ability to like hate the thing and think that you're better than it, but also to completely be wrapped up in it and just lapping at the teat is, I think, one of the main things that's wrong with capitalism and American culture. And
that's something that they've got, that media has gotten better at selling, is cynicism about media. And I think that we see it all the time now. Like, I'm amazed now at how many jokes make their way into mainstream media. As someone who is, well, politics aside, honestly, I'm amazed at how many jokes make their way into mainstream media about capitalism and like the wink and the nod at the US and its problems, while also promoting and selling those exact problems and really furthering a lot of them in a lot of ways. And it's become very profitable in the same way. It's just become very profitable to sell the cynicism and the self-superiority that you're talking about. And I think it's an extension of a culture that is more wrapped up in the self than it is in the community. And I think we've seen that over the last 50 or 60 years, that we've become more individualized and more it's about me and less it's about us. And
the things that are wrong are the others.
Right.
The other people.
Right.
Who I think that I'm better than.
Right.
So let's kind of make fun of them so that we don't have to actually deal with the shit that we're doing ourselves.
Is The Bachelor the perfect embodiment of that?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I think we could talk about that.
We could.
This is not an alt Bachelor podcast, so we'll leave it at 3 minutes on that. But
it's just such a common phrase. You totally could include this as like, hey, let me borrow some of your time, or like it didn't need to be that. And
it could just be request for one-on-one time ... or a phonetic hint to 4 pairs of. I mean, you could honestly just get rid of those 5 words in the Bachelor TV franchise.
There's a lot of Bachelor fans out there, but like, what about the non-Bachelor fans?
They get to feel better than the Bachelor fans. They get to feel.
I don't feel better than them. I begrudge no one for liking The Bachelor. It's not you. It's the show itself.
There's a lot of clues in this puzzle that have to cross 2 themers.
Yes.
And just about all of them are absolutely fine. Like, there's really not many that you're like, oh, that's a rough thing to have to try to put in there. I think Tooled Up was tough for me. That's
91 down,
62 down, Tooled Up, and then 91 down is Sub Rosa, which is secretly from the Latin and much less secret if you have spent time in law school. But it is. There's a couple that are in here that are tough, but for the most part, they do a really, really good job. You get fiance right next to porn star, which is just so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get idiotic, you get falsetto, you get the dot, clued, a timely thing to arrive on, just a delightful clue there. You get dude bro, which was incredibly fun to type in. Just a lot of really, really good stuff in here that made it. I really think I think this is my puzzle of the week.
Yeah, they did a lot of work to move the rough fill from the long themes, the long words, into the short ones. So you're right that there aren't a lot of long bad ones, which makes the puzzle a lot more fun. But there were a lot of short bad ones. And like 50 down, Mario Vargas Llosa.
Sure.
And 109 down, infinitive of suis and son.
You know, I hate the foreign language.
And 111 down, former Israeli PM Barak.
Everybody knows Ehud Barak.
Yeah. So what is 7 down? Award won by Don Draper on Mad Men.
Listen, if some more advice for solving crosswords. If you think you're going to solve crosswords and you see a 4-letter clue and it talks about an award, just write Clio. Just type it in.
Write Obi.
No, put Clio. Obi is one that maybe you need to know, but these like ad rep awards, PR awards, whatever it is, awards for that business It's Cleo. It's Cleo. It's Cleo. It's Cleo. Right, Cleo.
If it's a play, it's Obi.
If it's a play, it's Obi, or it could be Tony. So you're always going to be wrong, but just write Cleo. Frenemy was also fun to put in.
Yeah. So 101 across, Sea Eagle, Earn.
Yeah.
So it's some tiny things which can lead to bad outcomes, but when your long ones are this good, I think it's a great construction to be able to like slide that into the shorter so that you have so many long, beautiful revealers. So
77 across, committee head ? Becomes hard C.
Yep.
We were just talking about this. If you're going to do long E and you want to make it unhinged, go ahead and do end of Citizen Kane. So if you're going to do hard C, just be like start of Casablanca. Let's just like get a bunch of
even more unhinged. We can go further.
I was just trying to think of like what's an old, super old movie.
No, I think you,
because I like doing it as like a time in a movie, start of, end of, because you start. Okay, what happens at the beginning of Casablanca? Well, a hard C.
A hard C happens. Yeah, I agree. I think we can get crazier with it, and I hope to see less of this. But when I do see it, I hope it's crazy.
Yep.
Not my puzzle of the week. My puzzle of the week was too many Fridays are my puzzle of the week. I'm going with Monday.
I'm not going with
Wednesday.
Pac-Man?
I'm going with Wednesday.
Okay.
As my puzzle of the week. I love being delighted, and I was delighted. Just absolutely over the moon.
Did you have a worst cross of the week?
Waka waka waka. My worst cross of the week was mutt and whippets. Not because mutt is bad, but because another Animal Crossing is mule, which is half donkey, half horse. I was so certain of mule, and I'd never heard of a whippet, and that just incredibly boned me.
But then, in what world is 21 across going to start with an S and an E?
Yeah, obviously, I fixed it eventually, okay? I don't come down to where you work and tell you how to fix your problems, okay? It was a bad time. And when I finally figured out, I was like, the fuck's a whippet? And it just wasn't a fun time. Wasn't a fun time. How about you?
I don't know if I had any bad cross. There wasn't anything that stood out to me. I'm trying to think. I guess I don't know if I have one for this week, which is probably a sign of a good week from a Phil standpoint, or just that I got super lucky with Phil.
Yeah, so, last week we had a lot of unfortunate crossings. This week, Phil was better in general, and there weren't that many specific squares that had bad both ways.
I agree. And I'm gonna want it. And I'm gonna stick with Sunday for my puzzle of the week. So
fair enough. Fair enough. A good week. Let's hope that our technology problems are over.
And let's hope that the rants continue, honestly. I feel like we got like 5 rants and 7 puzzles this week. So like, let's keep it coming, honestly.
Very ranty. That's it for this week. Until next time, you can find us on Instagram at 2acrosspod for instant reactions to the crossword every day.
This episode was produced by David Cohn and edited by Judd Bushler with mastering from Alan Iverson. Original music by Clark Singleton. This is 2 Across.
And that's another one down.
Finger guns.